He didn't run for office. He didn't lead an army. Yet for nearly 3 decades, one man quietly ruled America. J.P. Morgan, a name that today sits on glass towers and billion-dollar banks. But behind that name lies something much darker, a story of control, manipulation, and money so powerful it could stop the U.S. government itself. This is not just a story about wealth. It's about how one man made the world's most powerful nation kneel to him in silence, and how his shadow still controls your money even now.
John Pierpont Morgan was born in 1837 in a world already obsessed with power. His father, Junius Morgan, was a respected banker, a man of order, influence, and privilege. From an early age, Pierpont was groomed to follow in his footsteps. But J.P. Morgan wasn't like other men born rich. He didn't chase luxury, he chased control. While others collected wealth, Morgan collected leverage. By the time he was 24, he was already manipulating financial markets from London to New York. And by 30, he had developed a reputation, not for kindness, not for generosity, but for being ruthless, calculated, and always one step ahead. He wasn't a dreamer. He was an architect of systems, corporations, and the unseen structure that would one day hold America by the throat. In the late 1800s, America was exploding with opportunity. Railroads connected the coasts, oil was discovered, steel was reshaping cities. But this new age came with chaos. Hundreds of companies competing, collapsing, and fighting for survival. Where most saw chaos, Morgan saw control. He began buying failing companies, merging them, and turning them into monopolies. One by one, he built corporate giants, U.S. Steel, General Electric, and dozens more. By the 1890s, he was no longer just a banker. He was the system. Presidents came and went, but when the U.S. government needed money, they came to him. He wasn't chasing fame or headlines. He was building an empire that lived behind the curtain, one so vast that even the White House depended on his approval. It's said that Morgan could pick up the phone, call 3 men, and decide the future of American industry. And, more often than not, he did.
Then came the test, the panic of 1907. America's economy was collapsing. Banks were failing, businesses were dying, and millions faced ruin. The government panicked. But there was no central bank, no safety net. So they turned to the only man who could save the system, J.P. Morgan. He locked New York's most powerful bankers inside his library and refused to let them leave until a rescue plan was agreed. For 2 days, Morgan dictated the survival of the U.S. economy like a general commanding a war. And it worked. He stabilized the markets, restored confidence, and saved the nation from complete collapse. But make no mistake, he didn't do it for charity. He did it for control. By saving America, Morgan proved that he was more powerful than the U.S. government itself. And that terrified people. Because if one man could single-handedly stop an economic collapse, what else could he do?
After 1907, J.P. Morgan wasn't just the richest man in America, he was the most feared. He held secret meetings with presidents, senators, and business magnates. He didn't run the government, but the government ran on his approval. His influence over railroads, steel, and banking was unmatched. At one point, he controlled more than half of the country's rail lines and funded entire industries. And yet,
the public knew almost nothing about him. He hated the press, avoided photographs, and spoke rarely in public. Because Morgan understood something timeless. Power is safest when it stays invisible. Still, the whispers grew. Was Morgan saving capitalism or secretly owning it? When reporters finally got a glimpse of him, they were shocked. He wasn't the polished tycoon they expected. He was intimidating, piercing eyes, scarred face, and a presence that filled the room. They said when he entered, silence followed, because people knew this was the man who could break fortunes with a single decision. In 1912, Congress finally summoned him to testify before the Pujo Committee, an investigation into the Money Trust. The goal was to expose the secret network of bankers who controlled America's wealth. Morgan sat calmly before them and said one of the coldest lines in financial history. "A man I do not trust could not get money from me on all the bonds in Christendom." In that one sentence, he confirmed what everyone feared. The economy wasn't built on gold or law or policy. It was built on trust. And Morgan was that trust.
When J.P. Morgan died in 1913, the world finally saw the scale of his power. He left behind an empire worth hundreds of billions in today's dollars, but that wasn't his true legacy. His death triggered something monumental: the creation of the Federal Reserve. The U.S. government realized it could never again allow one man to control its economy, so it built an institution that would, ironically, function just like J.P. Morgan did, a central force that could print money, rescue banks, and steer the entire economy. In a way, America didn't destroy his influence, it institutionalized it. Even today, the world's biggest financial players, from J.P. Morgan Chase to Goldman Sachs, operate on systems he designed: the markets, the banking networks, even the idea of too big to fail, all trace back to the man who once ruled from the shadows.
J.P. Morgan was never elected. He never wore a crown, but he controlled empires more powerful than nations. He saved America and owned it in the process. He built trust and weaponized it. He created stability and profited from the chaos behind it. More than a century later, his name still glows on skyscrapers. But the real legacy of J.P. Morgan isn't the bank. It's the system he built. A system that still decides who wins, who fails, and who controls the future. So the next time you walk past a bank, check your balance, or swipe your card, remember this: you're still living in J.P. Morgan's America.